And all my gamers and NFT enthusiasts, the Hip Hop Uncensored podcast is hooked up with the Lightest Sphere Network to offer you something special. Go to the top line of the description box and click on the link to play a season preview of the game Finesse Shadow Warriors. Is brought to you by play.finesse.fun. Go to the top line of the description box if you into NFTs and if you into gaming. Go have nonstop fun. Tell me your boy Oga sent you. The link is at the top line of the description box. Play.finesse.fun. Go get it.
Well said.
Right. Also, I don't know if you heard this. It was a while ago, but Cardi B, she didn't want her daughter actually listening to her. I think it was the WAP song. How you feel about that as well? Like she'll promote the music, promote the stuff to the young girls, but her daughter, nah, you ain't listening to this.
Absolutely. I feel like that's the hypocrisy of white supremacy. You know, I'm gonna feed it out to a whole bunch of other people, but I don't want it for myself. Right. And you know, I'm gonna be honest. I'm not a Cardi B. There isn't much positivity behind what Cardi B represents. Right. So let me just say this right here. A lot of the women in the industry, they promote singleness when they all have boyfriends and husbands. Yeah. Right. I don't know why love is such a hard sell for Black people. I don't know why unity is such a hard sell for Black people. But when you allow Cardi B, this is Cardi B's own admittance. She used to have money for sex, so she was publicly a prostitute. She said that she drugged men for money, so she was also robbing. And then America says, you know what? You're talented enough to, be a spokesperson, to sit down with Bernie Sanders and discuss economic empowerment and judicial issues. Right. I don't get it, but only thing I'm trying to say is Cardi B, it's easy. If white people are paying you to be your lowest self, okay? And the crazy part about it is if they're paying you, if a teacher was to come inside of a classroom with 15 students and repeat Cardi B, she would be fired immediately. The same society will let Cardi B songs play to those same children going to school and from school, and nobody will fire her. That's the world that we're living in.
I think that's a perfect time to segue into female women's hip hop today, as opposed to when it began. We had a conversation about that. There used to be role models for these young ladies in hip hop that they could look up to and admire, not just for their lyrics, but for their beauty and for their grace as well. Nowadays, it's way over sexualized, in our opinion. It's something that is nothing compared to what we were accustomed to when it was first when the exception first came. So what's your thoughts on female hip hop and how it's evolved into what it is right now?
Okay, so this is really, I'm glad that you asked this question, because I will say that I have some knowledge of the female hip hop. Of course, you got Lauryn Hill, Queen Latifah, all those people back in the day.
Right.
What's the sister name that had the long braids? Patra. She was one that kind of had style, had the little booty shorts on, but she would be rapping, and it was always a communication amongst men and women. But then there was a thing of self-respect and pride. Queen Latifah, UNITY, who you calling the B, all of those things, right? But then I would say by the time I got to high school, you also had Lauryn Hill, but unfortunately, you always had Lil' Kim. I remember getting Lil' Kim's cassette tape, right? Now, mind you, I'm like in 5th grade, and everybody is talking about like No Time, so I'm like, I'm going to get Lil' Kim's cassette tape. Me and my friends, we went, and my mother, who is a devout Christian, sometimes I think about this now, and I think how she owed me a cassette tape, because she took my shit and she threw it in the garbage. She was like, and mind you, Mama had never even heard any of her lyrics. She was like, she came in the house and she was like, yo, like, I heard about Lil' Kim at the beauty shop. And I was like, Mama was like, I heard she nasty. Let me get that tape. And I was like, really? Like, I can't believe this, at the beauty shop. So she took my tape and she threw it away. Now, I'm going to tell you two things. A friend of mine told me that she was introduced to sex early on. And she said that, you know, growing up being introduced to sex very early, she said she felt like Little Kim had given her a sense of power through sex, right? Like, well, now it's my vagina. I do what I want, you know, blah, 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 all of that, right? But we're 14. We have to do it, you know.
Right.
It's not for us. So the detriment behind all of the over-sexualization is we try to minimize what sex is, but sex is a power and it's a force and it's an energy. And then when it happens, that's why so much life happens. That's why life happens behind it, because this is something where life is going to be produced, you know. And if sex is improperly managed, then you have addiction, then you have molestation, then you have rape, you have all these negative things that comes from an improper use of sex. And then you have enjoyment that comes from a proper use of sex and being mentally and emotionally healthy to have the encounter, which sex is not for children because of the emotional things that happens behind it. So I believe that the women in hip hop is over sexualizing themselves, and it's not really a big payout. I think a lot of times somebody may say, that's why you got Lil' Kim, not Little Kim, but as you can see, Little Kim has aged. She is a mother. The whole, you know, eat my vagina, that world don't last for a lifetime. I tell people all the time, show me a prostitute that had a life of sex that's now retired and living her own home and sitting around retired with her prostitution money with her grandkids. And I'll never say anything else about sex. But when it's ill managed, of course, you have a lot of people in burnout and there is no reward behind it. So you have a Lauryn Hill who, you know, she never promoted herself through sex. But Lauryn Hill, when you look at Lauryn Hill, ain't nothing about Lauryn look like she burnt out. She don't look like she ain't been and laid on nobody's doctor's table 50 times, because let me tell you something. The biggest reward on the planet is having a sound mind.
Yeah.
Well said.
So we got people promoting sex as if it's a sense of power, but they constantly being defueled and they're becoming powerless. So that's my thing. I think that the promotion of sex requires a responsibility, and the women like to remove themselves from that part, and that's not good.
Well said.
Right. Also, I don't know if you heard this, it was a while ago, but Cardi B, she didn't want her daughter actually listening to her, I think it was the WAP song. How you feel about that as well? Like she'll promote the music, promote the stuff to the young girls, but her daughter, nah, you ain't listening to this.
Absolutely. I feel like that's the hypocrisy of white supremacy. You know, I'm gonna feed it out to a whole bunch of other people, but I don't want it for myself. And you know, I'm gonna be honest. I'm not a Cardi B. There isn't much positivity behind what Cardi B represents. So let me just say this right here. A lot of the women in the industry, they promote singleness when they all have boyfriends and husbands. I don't know why love is such a hard sell for Black people. I don't know why unity is such a hard sell for Black people. But when you allow Cardi B, this is Cardi B's own admittance. She used to have money for sex, so she was publicly a prostitute. She said that she drugged men for money, so she was also robbing. And then America says, you know what? You're talented enough to, you know, be a spokesperson, to sit down with Bernie Sanders and discuss economic empowerment and judicial issues. I don't get it, but you know, only thing I'm trying to say is Cardi B, it's easy. If white people are paying you to be your lowest self, okay? And the crazy part about it is, if they're paying you, if a teacher was to come inside of a classroom with 15 students and repeat Cardi B, she would be fired immediately. The same society will let Cardi B songs play to those same children going to school and from school, and nobody will fire her. That's the world that we're living in.
I think this is another perfect time to transition to a very controversial topic, but we are the Hip Hop Uncensored podcast, and we're never afraid to do that.
Yes, sir.
You talked about the mind of a 14-year-old when it comes to sex and not being properly ready for that. How we were you don't allow the child's mind to grow and develop into what they want to do and what they want to be. Well, we just recently seen that a child by the name of Zaya Wade changed her its sexual preference, name, gender, etc., spearheaded by parents Dwayne Wade and Gabrielle Union. Very controversial topic. I would love to know your thoughts and opinions on the entire situation, if you don't mind.
Thank you for asking me this. So, of course, two things. Number one, I personally like to tell people that what Gabrielle Union and Dwayne Wade has going on, let rich people do whatever they want to do. I try to tell poor or middle class Black men and women and children that ain't gonna work for your kid. America would tell you that your child can change their sex, right? Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, this same child can decide what school they go to. This same child can't decide, what their parents can make economically to take care of them. So these ideas that we can live in this fantasy of Tamir Rice, they didn't ask him, what's your gender? What's your preference? What do you go by when they came and killed him? Trayvon Martin, 17, they didn't ask him, what's your gender? What's your race? It was none of that. So some of the social issues that young Black children really got to go through, we can't even start talking about sex changes because we got to talk about these children getting home. We got to talk about them getting teachers to educate them. Like we can't think about how you feel on the inside. Cops ain't asking that question. Yeah. But I will say that I believe wholeheartedly that it's just rich people doing what rich people want to do. Yeah. I mean, Gabrielle Union and Dwayne Wade is not the spokesperson for anything of Black progression. We're talking about an NBA player and a actress.
Right.
We're not talking about people who can tell you the average salary of a public defender. We're not talking about people who can tell you the average salary of an assistant principal in an urban community. And we're not talking about if they know the budget of what it costs to feed 150 children. Let me tell you something else about this game that they playing. Mm-hmm. They don't even have any form of advocacy for Black children.
Right.
What we gonna do about the Black kids that's sitting in foster care, who don't even have parents, who don't have homes? Where's their advocacy? In my opinion, and let me just say this right here as well.
Yeah.
If you ever wonder how America got away with ships of slaves for hundreds of years, take a look at what they're doing in the LGBTQ community. When I say this, I want to say that how America got away with slavery, how America got away with calling us the N-word for hundreds and hundreds of years is that they made it a societal standard. They made it that this is law. And if you take a look at what's happening with Gabrielle Union and their children and the NAACP and the award that they just gave them, they are saying that this is a standard, that this is law. And if you ever wonder how your grandparents were able to go through the back door, this is how, because society has a way of making abnormal things appear normal. It has a way of making things wrong appear right. And then guess what? When there were people who were trying to say, I don't think it's right for a Black person to be a slave, and I'm gonna hide them in my basement, there were other people around them saying, you aren't supposed to do that. And when you have an opinion about the LGBTQ transition for children, you'll hear people fight you down and give you reasoning why this is okay. But let me tell you something. It may be okay in your world, but over here, I ain't going there yet. I ain't having no conversation with none of them NAACP, Gabrielle Union, and whoever else about children's transitions until we start talking about children's lives.
Whew. Bringing some heat today. I want to where I want to go. Let's talk about Malcolm X.
That's my favorite.
Yeah, I see you had him in the background. He wasn't. He's still back there. Okay.
Yeah.
His family now is coming together. Now his estate to sue the CIA, the FBI, and the New York Police Department for concealing, key evidence that had to do with his murder. What is your thoughts on that? All these years later, we always kind of knew, but now we know now. Like there's evidence to actually put towards speculation. What's your thoughts on that?
Pay up. Pay up.
Yeah.
Let me tell you something. America is under the impression that she will get away with everything that she has done, and she won't. Every time something happens, when they killed Malcolm X, it was this man. He was so prominent in his community. He was so powerful in his community and so loving. When you take a father away from their daughters, when you take a father away from, a husband away from his wife, they went years on out. It changed his absence changed the trajectory of his children's life. His absence changed the trajectory of his wife's life. And you need to pay for that. His grandchildren didn't have him. And Americans should pay for that.
Absolutely.
Without question.
It's never too late. It's never too late. I think somebody said before, it is never the wrong time to do what is right. It's never too late.
Absolutely.
I'm very happy to have you on because we don't often get a woman's perspective on certain topics, and we would love to have it. So we're very appreciative of having you on. I want to ask you, what's your thoughts on the perception of the black male image as it's displayed through the media today? The average black man, the everyday black man, the athlete, the actor as a whole. What's your thoughts on the perception of how we're looked at in the media?
You know what? I was just talking about this to a friend of mine. And I think what's happening is the media is really taking advantage of basically the black man and, doing whatever doing whatever they want to do to his image, right? But there's something that I believe that people are not really highlighting is, I don't know if you all noticed, but they keep on keeping him alone as well. They keep the black male image. They keep the black woman away from that imagery of him. So he's always standing alone. I was just talking about this with the Creed director, Ryan Coogler. He is always he's photographed for essence often. And if he's photographed, they get photos of him. They get photos of him and Michael B. Jordan. However, this man has a whole wife that has been by his side. And I said, what is the image problem of photographing him and his wife? He's not a standalone man. He has a union, that with him. And I'm just thinking but I believe that they're trying to control the black male's image. And I don't know why why they want to make black men the appearance that they're not protectors, that they're not lovers, and that they're not fully present, that they don't like black women. We know that black men like black women, So it's I personally think that white supremacy will never do right by black imagery. And we have to keep that in mind. So sometimes we're looking at black image through white lenses, white folks who decided this is the best image. Just working in Hollywood, you can write a black male character and they'll go back and say, oh, no. He needs to be gay, or he needs to be the gay black male best friend or something of that nature. And it's okay. But there's a multitude of black people. And that's what's actually happening too. Our images are too far and few in between. That's why we feel so underrepresented all the time. And that's a problem when there should be all kinds of Black men represented all the time.
Well said.
Definitely. One other topic, and we won't hold you much longer, that I saw you very outspoken about was Coach Prime, Deion Sanders, moving on from Jackson State, to Colorado now. Now, there's been a debate. A lot of people said it's a good thing. A lot of people called him a sellout. Where do you stand with him moving from Jackson State to Colorado in such a short amount of time?
Well, you know what? This has been my favorite interviews thus far because you all have asked some questions that make people think, and I'm so grateful for that.
Thank you.
I'm gonna say what I haven't been able to say. I think even when I first did a video, guys, I don't know your followers and supporters. I'm Madam President with the Z. You can find me anywhere. One Madam President on all social media platforms. But I want to say, as it relates to Coach Prime, he thought it was a good idea. He says, "This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to make a transfer. I'm going to go to another school, bigger institution, bigger resources. I'm going to do that."
Right.
And according to some other people, this is mean from what other people pretty much said about him leaving is he pretty much had went to Jackson State with one game plan in mind and kind of changed his mind about it when something else came along. Said that this was God's doing. He used spirituality. He used all these different things. He took the highest recruit in the country with him or to Jackson State. And all of a sudden he changed his mind. So I think a lot of people were inherently disappointed by that, as they should. Here's the one thing that Coach Prime even don't know. What Coach Prime don't know is white supremacy is so intentional that they will pay you any kind of money to take you away from the possibility of dismantling what the NCAA is, what recruiting is for white people. He thought that he was just going on to another school. But guess what? When he went on to another school and his recruits began to go and all these different changes happen, white people are willing to make long-term decisions. That means that if the HBCU sports was about to become on the rise, they'll do anything to make sure that it doesn't. We'll make sure that young Black men go to our schools no matter what. Oh, it's just gonna cost $15 million? Oh, that ain't no problem. We got that.
Right.
We got that from when your grandmama that was working in the 1700s. We got $15 million. That is nothing. So we may be thinking that we're making a personal choice for our family. But what white people do is they make choices for 100 families. They make choices for 200 families. And it's been at our detriment for far too long. So I get it. I'm not trying to say that Coach Prime has to be Malcolm X and he has to be Dr. King or he has to be anything besides himself.
Right.
But the idea that they're offering him something other than what he can't achieve on his own, I think it's untrue. I think that he was going to dismantle a system. It could have took him a longer time, but I do believe he would have changed the trajectory of recruiting for all HBCUs. And guess what? White supremacy ain't gonna have that. So if it takes just a few $1 million to take you to Colorado to a losing team, we'll do it. We absolutely will.
And that's what they did. Well said, Madam President, on the Hip Hop Uncensored podcast. You got anything else, Cuz?
I'm good. Yeah.
Got one more question for you.
Okay.
We were admiring your background. We were talking about your artwork and things like that. Always a fan of your background. And one thing I always see is the books, the stack of books that you got lined up in there. For the people who are interested in want to get into reading or trying to find a good book, give them some recommendations on what they can get into and what they can read.
I'm always going to recommend my first book that I received in college that changed pretty much. It challenged how I was thinking. It pretty much challenged how I was viewing the world. Maybe it was always in me through something, but it's Breaking the Psychological Chains of Slavery by Naeem Akbar. It's a very thin read. It's not all obnoxiously big.
Right.
So you can read it, you can digest it, and you can read it again, and you can start seeing how this society is formed and how to start breaking mental chains as soon as possible.
Great.
Did you read I know you had to read the ISIS papers. Did you ever read that?
Oh my God, yes. I need to reread the ISIS papers though. It's been a while. Like it's probably been a minute since I read it. But Dr. Cress Wesseling, who's better than her? I think she had a really prominent theory. The one thing that I loved about Dr. Cress Wesseling is how she pretty much demanded that we wait to have families.
Yeah.
That we have too many premature children too young, and we all know that. Speaking of, my mother had me at 15 years old, so imagine the kind of challenges my mother had trying to raise a child, but she had support, like my grandmother, my grandfather, my uncle, my aunts. I had a family of love that always, looked out for me. But what I learned as a woman is, if this is the world that my family was going out into every day, oh my God, let me go get that meat and put it out for them before they get home from work. This is tough. Let me go get that meat out the freezer and make sure it is unthawed.
I heard that.
It's a tough world. And if you're like, if I'm trying to raise a child, then I need to be fully developed mentally and emotionally as best as possible. But if we're going to continue the cycle of, having children prematurely, it's just really hard for us to advance. And then tall, dark, and handsome, how everybody has an enjoyment behind the tall, dark, and handsome. Dr. Cress Wesseling, she is a queen, and she left behind a beautiful legacy, and I appreciate her work coming down on paper.
Appreciate it. Well, yeah, we definitely appreciate you. One more time, if you got a website, Instagram, anything on the people to know, the floor is open.
Absolutely. So, of course, my name is Madam President with a Z. There's many people on the internet, but none of them are me. Okay. So it's one Madam President, and you can find me on all social media platforms. I am the owner of the Freedom Company, an apparel company that is built in Black wealth, Black economics, Black love, and Black empowerment. You can check me out at www.thefreedom.company. But most of all, follow me online, and I'm not looking for more followers, to be honest. I'm looking for more leaders.
Right.
We definitely appreciate you. Great chopping it up with you for the second time. Can't wait to do it again. Madam President on the Hip Hop Uncensored podcast.
Yeah.
Been a pleasure.
Yeah, this was so much fun.
We're going to do it again.
Absolutely.